Alright, in this video we're going to create a hinge, which is going to be an assembly of a few parts, and then we're going to animate that in our assembly screen. So first thing we're going to do is start modeling in 2 dimensions. So let's go ahead and start a sketch. We're going to select the top plane as our sketch plane. I'm going to view normal to sketch plane. Oh, but I'm upside down. And I'm on the wrong side of the plane. Let's go ahead and orbit. There we go. Press the P key to hide the planes. And I'm going to create a construction line just to give me a reference point and a center line. So I'm just going to click anywhere randomly and make sure I'm vertically constrained. And once I have my line, I'm going to now use the midpoint constraint. So from the list, choose midpoint. Click on the line, then attach the midpoint to the point of origin. And that didn't work. Whoops. Midpoint. Click that line, that point. There we go. Now I want to dimension this thing. And let's go ahead and just do a nice even number of 100. Alright, now I'm going to create what I'm calling the hinge, like the center parts. I don't know what to call them, but the actual part where the hinges attach to each other. So we're going to model those using rectangles. I'm going to use the rectangle tool, click in the upper left hand corner where my construction line ends right there, and drag down and away. And I'm going to dimension this now, and let's have this be 25. This is all just imaginary, so you can use whatever numbers you want. This is going to be 25, and let's say this is going to be 10. Alright, now what I want to do is I'm going to copy this rectangle and put it down here. Why are we copying? Why don't we just create it? Well, we want to learn how to use the copy tool. Well, there's no copy tool, but there's a copy method. So I'm going to escape out of any tool I'm currently using. So I have this little pointer thing. I'm going to right click, choose copy sketch, and then I'm going to choose what I want to copy. That thingy, this one. When I get over here, I have an issue. I can't select the line that I want to select because there's multiple lines there. So what I need to do is right click and choose select other. This will allow me to select which thing I want to select, and I want to select this thing here, which is the edge of sketch 1, not this edge of sketch 1, which would be the construction line. So I want this thing here. Then I want to right click, so I've selected my objects. And select, right click, and then select paste. So I think what that did is selected everything. So let me go ahead and undo that step. This time I'm going to select my items first. Click this item, this item, this item, and then right click, select other, then select edge of sketch 1. So now my rectangle is highlighted in yellow. I'm going to right click. There we want to do this. Copy sketch entities. Then I'm going to right click and choose paste sketch entities. It's going to place those things here and also go into what's called transform mode, which is this here. So now I can move my copied items in space where I want them to be. It attaches this snapping point to my object, and I can grab that point and place it anywhere I want to on the object. So let's say I wanted to attach this corner to that point. So I click on that, move it there, then drag this thing over and let it snap to that point. I don't want that corner, I want this corner. So I'm going to go ahead and drag this point over here. Then I can drag using this square until it snaps into place. So I want that to snap right there. You'll see what the result will look like kind of in a ghosty manner. And then when you click anywhere else, it will actually perform the transform. So now it's placed it there. So now I have two ends of one hinge. I need a third that's going to go on the opposite hinge, and I'm just going to make that fit in between these points. So what I'm going to do is just go ahead and click my rectangle tool. I'm just going to create it out here in space. Then I'm going to dimension it. So I want this to be the same measurement, 10. Then I want this one to be, I'm going to fill the gap. So far I have two 25s, which is 50. So I have 50 to work with. So I'm going to do 5, 0. Alright, now I want this to be attached from the midpoint of this line to the point of origin. So I'm going to click on the midpoint constraint, click on this line, click on that point. Oh, I forgot to dimension this. So let me zoom into that. Let me edit that. It should be 10. There we go. Alright, now I'm going to revolve each of these rectangles, which is going to create cylinders. So I'm going to go ahead and press the revolve option. All three of these are already selected. So it says faces of sketch 1. I can click on here and now I can choose the axis. It can be any of these lines. So now it's revolved, and I think because they're all touching, it's creating all one solid thing. So let me get out of this, so I don't want to do that. So let's choose just two faces that aren't touching. Yeah. What happens if I do the third? Oh, can't do that because they're touching. So let me just do the two that aren't touching. Create two new parts because they're not touching. I'm going to use one more time the revolve tool. It's going to be new. You reveal sketch 1, select that. Revolve axis is going to be this. And make sure it's a new part and not adding to another part. Click the check mark. So now I have the three components that make the center part of my hinge. These things are going to revolve. Alright, so I'm done with this part. I'm going to create the pin that is going to create the hole and also hold all of these cylinders together. I'll create a sketch, choose this top surface as my drawing plane, and I'm going to just draw a circle. And I want this to be equal to the outside edge, which is 20. My rectangles had a length of 10, which would be the radius of 20. So when they were revolved, they created a cylinder that was 20 millimeters in diameter. So let me go ahead and place this, and then I can dimension it. This is going to be 20. Then I'm going to create another circle, and let's just click there to place it, and we'll dimension this. This is the thickness of the actual pin. So I'm going to click there and have this be 15. Alright. Now I'm done with the sketch. Click the check mark. And I'm going to go ahead and hide the first two parts here. Actually, I have 3 parts. And I want to extrude first the pin part. So I'm going to extrude this down and a total of 100 millimeters. So it goes through all of those smaller cylinders. I'm done with that. I'm going to go ahead and extrude again. Make sure I reveal my sketch so I can choose the outside region. And I'm going to make sure I click the outside and the inside circle. And then I don't need it to extrude that far. So let's just say something like 5 millimeters. There we go. And because it's touching the previous part, it's adding it to that. So you can see the merge scope is part 4, which is actually what we want this all to be one solid object. So I'm going to keep it in the add mode. Click the check mark. Whoops. Now I gotta redo that. Click the wrong thingy. So let me go ahead and reveal this. Do that again. Go 5. Make sure I click the center part. Whoops. There we go. Click the check mark. Alright, there we have the pin. We go ahead and reveal the other 3 parts. What I want to use the pin to subtract from those. So I use the Boolean tool. My tool is going to be part 4, which is the one I just created. I want to be in subtract mode. And then my targets are going to be parts 1, 2, and 3. Now I want to keep the tool, which is the actual pin. So I want to click that so it stays there so I can keep part 4. Click the check mark. So now let me hide part 4 to see the result. So now I've made a hole. So this pin is going to go through all of these cylinders and hold them together. So let me go ahead and label this because this is going to be one of our main parts. Name this the pin. Alright, now we're going to create a new sketch. This is going to be the actual plate for our hinges. So let me go into sketch mode. I'm going to be just drawing on the top plane. And then let me go ahead and view normal to that plane. And I'm going to hide my parts so I can see I have the other drawing here. So what I want to do is make this plate attached to my hinges, but if I attached it to the very tip here, you'll be attaching a rectangle to a round surface. So it would only touch right here. Let me just give you an example of it's going to be a straight line on the edge. So I attach a straight line. Let's just go ahead and just draw a random line here. Make sure it's aligned properly. Why won't it align properly? I understand. So I can't illustrate it right now because I'm on the wrong plane. But hopefully you understand, you'll get the concept. So when I draw this plate, if the edge of the rectangle was attached here, it wouldn't be attached by very much material. So I'm actually going to start my rectangle somewhere in here so it's kind of inside the cylinder. So I'll go ahead and start my rectangle. I'm going to be modeling a plate. It could be anywhere inside here all the way to this edge. Let's say if I wanted to use that edge, just so we can practice using the Use tool. I'm going to use the Use tool and project where this circle intersects my current drawing plane. So right there. Now I can use that to start my rectangle. And then I'm going to reference the bottom because I want this to be even with that. So I'm referencing that and then dragging away. Then I can see that horizontal constraint. So I'm going to click there to place my rectangle. Now I can dimension it. This is obviously going to be 100 because it's the same. I referenced that measurement. I'll go ahead and dimension this and have it be 50. Whoops, that was 5. 50. And I'm eventually going to have 2 of these, one on either side. So I'm going to use the mirror tool. Select the mirror line, which would be anywhere here in the center. And then I'm going to choose the objects to be mirrored. So that one, that one, that one, and this one. Alright, I'm done with my sketch. Now I'm going to extrude both of these regions. And because they're not touching, it's going to create 2 new parts. And I want these to be, instead of going in one direction, I want this to be symmetrically extruded, and then the thickness probably around 3 millimeters. This represents just a plate of metal. So we're done extruding. I'll press the check mark. So I've created 2 new solids. And what I need to do now is combine these with the corresponding hinges. So I'm going to reveal part 1 and part 2. And I'm going to union these to, let's say, the right hinge here. So I'm going to use the Boolean tool. I'm going to union. I'm going to use part 5 and part 1 and 2. Oh, I didn't want to use 2. I picked 3 instead of 2. Part 2. Right? Nope. So it's reordering the parts here. So I have that one. Where is that part? Part 1. Okay, there we go. So now I have all of that in one solid. That's 1/2 of the hinge. So I'll click that. Check mark. So this is my new part. I'm going to go ahead and label this right half. Right hinge. Now I need to make the left hinge. So I'm going to use another Boolean tool. I'm going to combine part 4 and what currently is part 1. Click the check mark. This I'm going to label right or left hinge. And then I have my pin. So these are the 3 main components for the hinge. And there's a couple things that are wrong here. First, let's learn about how to change the view mode. Over here near your view cube, there's a drop menu. And these are all your view options. So I'm going to change this so I can see the hidden edges. So you can see the edges behind that are hidden, kind of like an X-ray. Let me try a different mode because I can't really see them very well. There we go. This gets rid of the shading, and you can really see now. So the problem I'm having is, let's see this part here. The solid material is going through this cylinder here. You can see that there. That's no good. Same thing is happening here in the center with this guy. So this is going through the solid material of this hinge. So we're going to fix that so we have a more realistic looking drawing. So let me go back into a more solid looking mode. Let's go with hidden edges. Alright, so let me go ahead and hide. The pin is not the problem, so I'm going to go ahead and hide that. So there's areas where the two solids are overlapping. You can see that here. So I need to use the extrude tool to actually remove some material. I'm going to hide one of the hinges so I can focus on one at a time. So in this example, I need to remove this material right here. There's too much. So I'm going to use the extrude tool, but go into remove mode, and then it's asking me to choose the face of the sketch regions to extrude. So I want to use this face right here. As soon as I click on it, you can see it's doing what I want it to do, but it's just removing too much material. So it's set to 25 millimeters. I think the thickness, the difference here is like 5 millimeters. So let's just do 5 and see what happens. It's actually less than 5. But that would definitely work. I'm going to go with a smaller measurement. Let's do 3. That works. That looks nice. Okay. Press check mark to accept that. Now I just need to do that to the other part. So the right hinge done, I'll hide that one, and we'll reveal the left hinge. And this one, this area and this area down here are the ones that need to be removed. Press the extrude tool, make sure I'm in remove mode. I'm going to set it to 3 millimeters because I know that's the measurement that works. Click on this region and this region. Orbit just to make sure that's what I want it to do. Yep. Click the check mark. Now I can reveal all the parts again just to make sure everything's going to fit together nicely. There's nothing overlapping. You can see now there's a gap there and a gap here. So those materials are going to be able to travel without interfering with each other. Alright, now we're done with this part. We're going to now create an assembly. We've created our parts, now we're going to assemble them together. So I'm going to go into the assembly workspace. First thing I need to do is insert some parts. So I'm going to click on the insert option. And if you need to, you can expand the list of parts. And the first thing we're going to do is place the left hinge in position. This is going to always stay stationary, so this one is not going to move. So I'm going to click here, and I want to have a mate, so I'm going to click and place it anywhere. I just want to have a simple fasten mate because it's not going to be animated or moving or rotating or anything. So I'm going to click on the basic fasten mate, and I want it to fasten here, the center of this circle where the hinge point would be. So I'm going to click there, and then I want to make sure that it's oriented so that right there the Z was lined up to where that would be the pivot point in the Z axis. So now the pivot point I want it to display is where the Z is lined up with the top. So I'm at the point of origin and the Z is in the top direction. So if I change the direction, it's not going to work. So I want it to be like in real life, up and down like this. So I'm going to click there. It's going to align that with the Z. And now the last thing I want to do is adjust the offset so that the bottom of my hinge is aligned with the point of origin. So I'm going to click on the offset option, and in the Z direction I want to be offset 25 millimeters because that's the distance between here and there. I'm done fastening, so I'm going to click the check mark. So that's my piece that remains stationary. So now I'm going to add, let's add the pin next. So again, it's assuming I want to do another fasten mate. I don't. So I'm going to click the X there. Let's go ahead and insert the pin. Place it somewhere randomly for now. And this one I want to have a slider mate, which will allow it to slide in and out of the hinge. I want to demonstrate that assembly motion. So I'm going to use the slider mate. And I want this to be oriented in the right direction, so this is a little tricky. So I want it to be up and down with the Z pointed up. So I could use this and then offset it, but I want to use the bottom to attach it. So if you reference the top, it's going to align the Z in the correct position. And then you can transfer that down to the bottom. If I were to start at the bottom, it's going to want to align the Z pointing down instead of up towards the head of the pin. So that's a little bit tricky. You want to just kind of force it to have the Z facing up and then go down to the bottom and click there. So that's the point you want to have connected, and you want to make sure that it's connected here with the Z pointing in the right direction. So it's going to align that Z with this Z. Click there to place it, and then click the check mark to accept that. So now that's assembled correctly, and if I click and hold, I should be able to move it with a slider mate, so it's sliding in and out. So far, so good. Alright, the last thing we need to place is the other hinge half. So again, it assumed I wanted to make another slider mate. I don't, so I'm going to click the X. Alright, so now I'm going to insert the last part here, the right hinge. Place it somewhere randomly. And I want this to be aligned on the end here with the point of origin, and this is going to swing back and forth. So eventually I want this to rotate. So I'm going to be using this option here, the revolute mate. So it's going to revolve around the point of axis. I'm going to click on that option, and then make sure that I'm referencing. This one doesn't matter if it's up or down because it's going to be revolving around it. I just need to make sure that it's in the right place. So I'm going to click there and then make sure that my Z is oriented correctly. I'm going to hide the pin just so I don't mate the hinge to the pin. I just want it to be mated to the point of origin. So I'm going to hide, where was that? The pin. And then place this with the Z orientated correctly. Alright, so that should work there. I'm going to click the check mark to place it. And again, it's assuming I want to create another mate. I'm going to click the X to get out of that. And now I'm going to test this and click and hold. You should be able to swing it back and forth. Alright, so now let's go ahead and talk about this scenario. This is not realistic. In real life, physics would not allow you to travel all the way through the other material like a ghost. So there's some limitations to this. So I want to limit my rotation travel. So I'm getting into the settings for the revolute. Double click there. And you can see I have an option for limits. If I press play, it will display the degrees of rotation. So it's happening a little too quickly, but I'm going to go ahead and create a limitation and see what happens. So let's go ahead and limit this. So if this is 0, then 180 degrees would be lined up with the other hinge. So I want it to stop short of that. So let's try something like 170. See what happens here. So it's still overlapping a little bit. So let's go less than that. Let's go 150. That looks pretty close. I'll be able to view this when I accept the limit. So if it's 150 in that direction, then it's going to be negative 150 in the other direction. Let's go ahead and play that to see what that looks like. Alright. Let's go ahead and click the check mark, and now I can grab this and see if it travels too far. Nope. I could actually give it a little bit more revolution. Go back into the settings. Probably increase this to, let's say, 155. Probably give it a little bit more, but that's okay. We're going to settle for that. So we have that there. So we can animate that. And we also have our pin. So go ahead and display that. So I should be able to remove the pin. And you can see this travel is not representing, again, the laws of physics. So it should stop right there at the top. So I'm going to get into that option. That's the slider mate. So I'm going to double click that. And then click on the limits. There's no minimum limit. So I'm going to change that to 0. So it stops at 0 height, which is right here. Let me go ahead now and try that again. So now if I bring that down, it doesn't ever travel past 0. So now I have a very realistic assembly, and I can animate this in real life to see how this is going to work. That was it for this lesson.